Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/entitled people. In today's episode, proposing at people's wedding is not okay. My family doesn't love my little brother because we don't give him enough money. Karen encounter story. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Proposing at people's wedding is not okay. Backstory: my mom and dad split up when I was 12 and I for one was happy that they were separated. They were not bad people, they just weren't the right people for each other. My father still hasn't been remarried, though he is dating someone RN, don't really like her, but it's my dad's decision. My mom started dating a year after the divorce. She met my now stepfather, SF. He had a son who I became quite close to, considering my biological brother went to live with my dad while I lived with my mom. So when my mom announced her wedding, we were all excited. So then SF's son becomes my official stepbrother, SB. Okay, we're done with backstory, onto the real story. My SB and his girlfriend of 3 years were getting married. Now girlfriend just happens to be my best friend, so I was extremely excited for them. I was chosen to be the maid of honor and my biological brother, BB, was the best man. We were all that close. My SB's best friend, A=asshole, was one of the groom's men. I never really liked him because he was a total creep and always tried to hit on me when my SB wasn't there. SB is quite protective, so I didn't tell him or he would have been arrested for murder. Also, I can stand up for myself. Anyway, once I finally got a girlfriend, he stopped annoying me. So during the planning of the wedding, nothing crazy happened apart from the normal wedding stress. We invited almost everyone we knew and it was going to be great, or so we thought. The big day arrives and everyone is ecstatic. The ceremony was beautiful and everything went great. Then the reception came. It was going great. The groom and bride plus the bridesmaids and groomsmen were all seated at a table at the front of the venue while the guests were sitting in front of us. So they were facing our table. Everyone was giving speeches and enjoying the food. Then out of nowhere, a stand up and takes the mic and says he has something important to say. We're all confused as he had finished his speech, but let him talk. I wish we hadn't. He asks his GF to come up to the table and I already knew where this was going. He starts a speech on how much he loves her and how they were meant for each other. She's smiling, but I think she didn't want this to happen now of all the times. He then kneels down and pulls a ring out of his pocket and asks her to marry him. She say yes. They start running around showing people the ring, all the while my best friend, BFF, looked like she was going to cry. My SB and BB were whispering to each other. I couldn't hear what they were saying. Finally, my mom gets up to remind everyone that this was her son's wedding and that we should stop talking about someone else's engagement. Everyone was quiet. Suddenly we hear this banshee scream. The girlfriend started screaming and crying, saying my mom had ruined her special day. Then they began screaming at us too, claiming that he did nothing wrong. They got kicked out in the end. My brother lost his best friend that day, but he didn't really care cause that idiot lost all his friends. I'm also gonna be a bit petty and say they can even have a wedding because of COVID-19, so hope they're happy. Sorry about this horribly formatted post and hope enjoyed reading this story of two dysfunctional humans that are a pain to this earth and humanity in general. Bye. Wow, what a bunch of shitheads to try to steal someone else's special and say they ruined my special day. Well, it's common sense not to do that shit. I know, right? We still get angry texts from them. That's a completely different story. That ranks right up there with the selfish pricks who announce a pregnancy at someone else's wedding or baby shower. Total douche move. Well, to be fair, I now hope OP's BFF and SB do exactly this at A's wedding, assuming they even get invited. It's bad enough that the entitled pair did this at someone else's wedding. What makes it well beyond the pale is that they are not even related to the bride or groom. What a pair of selfish, self-centered plonkers. Right? The classic excuse for this nonsense is, but all the family is here. There is nothing more trashy than proposing on someone's wedding day. Like seriously, save it for another time. In private, in public, at a beloved restaurant. Anywhere else other than a wedding, extra trashy points if they do it as a funeral, although I refuse to believe some people would go that low. That's just rude and cheap. Pay for your own engagement party instead of parasitizing off someone else's wedding. I love your mom for calling them out on the spot. What a hero. Trust me, if there were no family members there, she would have ripped that poor lad in two. I'm literally clueless about everything. I don't always get stuff or say the one thing at the wrong moment, kinda awkward sometimes. But it is a sad, cold day when even I know proposing on someone else's wedding day is the dumbest mess up ever. You literally ruined the wedding couple's day, genius. It ain't yours, so why the hell are they screaming about how their special day was ruined? My family doesn't love my little brother because we don't give him enough money. So I, 22F, have two twin siblings. Both of them are 17, one is a girl and one is a boy. This summer my dad asked them both to get summer jobs to earn spending money. My parents bought them both cars and paid for their gas to school and work. My sister got a job right away and has been making money since May. My brother, on the other hand, has not even started looking. Additionally, my brother just got a new girlfriend and has been using his car, that only takes premium gas and has 16 miles per gallon, to drive the hour commute to his girlfriend's house every day. My father recently told him that if he does not find a job, there will be no more gas money to get to his girlfriend's. This sparked a whole family fight about how nobody loves my brother because he doesn't get as much money as my sister and I. Meanwhile, my sister and I both have jobs, I work full-time, we take care of housework and dog sit the puppy my brother begged for, while he goes off to hang out with his girlfriend all day, unemployed with no intention to help. And then he is confused when he doesn't get a check in the mail because my sister got a check from work and it's only fair. He has been borrowing money from his girlfriend and her parents. Recently he has been asking my parents for $200 to buy a pair of shoes, and when they said no he asked the girlfriend's parents. There is much more, but I'm curious if anybody else has had similar experiences with their siblings. My sister and I are able to understand the value of money and work to earn it, but he feels entitled to free money. You and your sister are both working and doing household chores. Your brother is doing absolutely nothing. No job. No chores. Yet he still is asking your parents for money. Good for them for saying no. Now he is borrowing money from his girlfriend and her parents. I sure hope they see the entitlement of your brother and don't lend him any money. They will never get it back. $200 for shoes? The pure audacity boggles my mind. Your brother needs a reality check real quick before he permanently turns into a leech. I am 43 and financially comfortable, yet have never owned $200 shoes and most likely never will. I cannot fathom being a 17-year-old with zero income and zero desire for supplying myself with personal income, opting instead to beg for that from the parents of a teenage girlfriend. JFC. He won't have that GF for long if her parents have half a brain. Would have been the last time they came to my house if I were the GF's dad. Can't have someone without any sense driving my kid around. I can't even wrap my head around him asking the girlfriend and her parents for money. If I were those parents, it would be a huge red flag for me. The girlfriend too. I just don't understand why they'd put up with that. I just checked with my 19-year-old daughter, she busted out laughing and said, "Nope, throw that fish back, he stinks." Is your brother cognitively impaired? Or just a narcissistic entitled brat? Does he understand that your sister gets a paycheck, not just a donation from the universe? Sounds like your parents have been more than generous. Family therapy and some sort of meet the real world plan might be necessary. In your parents' place, I'd also have a talk with the girlfriend's parents and explain the reason he gets no more money from them. Your 17-year-old entitled brother is in for a rude shock when he is legally required to adult very shortly. Karen encounter story. Well, it finally happened to me. I'm not certain this is more of an entitled, selfish, or just a run-of-the-mill Karen story, but here goes. A few weeks ago I, 39M, was on a work trip and went to a restaurant to get a meal at a casual-type local place. Since I had a few hours to kill, I decided to dine in rather than get takeout. It was early afternoon, and the place was around 60% full. The hostess seated me at a two-top. Before I even sat down, I asked her for directions to the restroom, so I could wash my hands before eating. I left my ball cap/hat on top of the menu on the table, mainly so any server would know someone was seated. After the 2 minutes it took me go wash my hands, I returned and found my table and one of the two chairs gone, my hat and the menu included. I turned around to look for a server when I noticed that a nearby booth had a two-top table with one chair pulled up to it. There were 5 people seated, and only one at the two-top. On the floor a few feet away I noticed my hat. When I approached to pick up my hat, I asked the people sitting there if they had moved the table. A woman in the booth, let's go ahead and call her Karen, responded that a friend showed up so they needed a larger or additional table and that this one wasn't being used. I responded that I had been seated there and was using it, and had left my hat on the table to indicate that while I washed my hands. She responded that there was no hat on the table. When I asked how my hat ended up on the floor, picking it up and pointing to it, next to her table, she said she never saw it. At that point I noticed a waiter, so I gestured for him to come over. I explained that this party moved my table over to their booth. I said I had no problem if they wanted to use one of the chairs for their additional guest, but that I would need the table. Karen cut me off at the end and said, to me, not the waiter, that I should just find another table since they were already using it. I responded, to the waiter, that I was using it, which was why I had left my hat there while I washed my hands. At this point the other woman who was sitting at my table started to get to, presumably to give me the table back, but Karen immediately said, "Don't you dare" to her, then stared at me and the waiter as if daring either of us to respond. The waiter started to say he was sure they could find her another table. She cut him off with a typical Karen response, "We are not giving up the table, and I need to speak to your manager." This is when I decided I really liked the waiter and would give him a nice tip. He responded that he wasn't going to waste his manager's time on a complaining Karen and told her the options were to give me back the table to go eat somewhere else. I'm not sure how, but it worked, except for the staring daggers and muttered comments which I found amusing. She did not appreciate my periodic smirk or chuckle in response. Looking back, I maybe could have just moved, but I also assumed it was an innocent mistake until Karen opened her mouth and hit me with that patented attitude. Good for you. Never saw the hat. That's pure Karen behavior there. No man. I need to speak with your manager. That's the Karen's trump card. This is a very satisfying Karen story. I hope the waiter is tipped generously and often. He was. The place wasn't very expensive, but I still gave him a good cash tip, about 50% of the check. It sounds like she probably saw you get seated and decided to take the table because she could. It happens and is usually because they want to start something. It was probably nothing against you, she was probably hoping to get her meal for free or something. I agree. Bullies of her type often try to provoke a scene, so that the store or restaurant manager will have to appease them with discounts and freebies. And of course some Karens and Kevins just do it out of sheer meanness. Their days are not complete until they've ruined somebody else's. Oh man. As a long-term restaurant manager, these kinds of customers were the highlights of my day. Because I got to trespass them, ban them from the property, and sometimes watch them leave in cuffs. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.